Hitler once reportedly said, "If I had a son, I want him to be like Degrelle." Who? Léon Degrelle, the founder of Rex, or the Rex Popular Front, the Rexist Party, which was a Belgian fascist movement that collaborated with the Nazis during the Second World War. In this video, you're gonna learn more about this faction. The Rexist Party is most important of all the authoritarian right-wing movements that emerged in Belgium in the 1930s. Léon Degrelle had founded the militant Rex Party in 1935. Unlike the Flemish National Alliance, its ideological basis was clear. It had origins in the anti-democratic resentment of a generation of young people, militantly Catholic, most of whom had studied at the University of Leuven. After securing a solid electoral base nearly 12%, in 1936 the party could attract support from various quarters. However, its roots were from the Catholic people in the south of Belgium. From the beginning, the party was led by Léon Degrelle. The party was also immediately a rallying point for all those who rejected a multi-party structure of the parliamentary system in Belgium, and more specifically its political class. At its peak, it had appealed to different francophone conservatives, integralist Catholics, right-wing intellectuals, the military, and Belgian royalists.
Je n'ai pas eu que des milliers de garçons, j'ai eu autant de jeunes filles, et toutes les plus belles filles. C'est le roi Léopold qui disait ça, le Rex Appeal, c'était ça. Et là, une jeune fille à 20 ans, plus encore qu'un jeune garçon, c'est travailler, c'est dévoré par toutes sortes de désirs.
An observer, the French fascist writer and future collaborator Robert Brasillach noted about Degrelle's party the following. It aimed to carry out a moral revolution in the fashion of Mussolini, Italy, and Salazar, Portugal. Most of all, however, he displays his attraction to the personality of the leader of the party, who was full of energy and had a lust for life. The Belgian leader had no interest in political theory. Politics was all about emotions, feelings, and instinct. As was observed, Degrelle was a charismatic orator who incited popular enthusiasm with his physical radiance, a certain animal attraction. Now, after 1936, Rex was financed by both Hitler and Mussolini, who wanted to find support for fascism in Europe. After a visit to Italy, Degrelle praised Mussolini's fascism as a political model for right-wing parties in Belgium. In the late 1930s, however, he began to favor Nazi Germany as an example for his country, though he pointed to the cultural proximity with France, resting upon a shared language, history, and political structure. He claimed, "Do not link us up to Berlin. We want to get along with all our neighbors and organize with all regenerated peoples the resistance to communism." After its initial electoral breakthrough, the party struggled with keeping up the pace. The failure of Degrelle in his attempt to defeat Paul van Zeeland in a by-election he had provoked in April 1937 and the evolution of the movement moving closer to the new order in Europe caused a major setback. Degrelle's defeat did seem to mark a turning point in his political evolution, opposed by the system and unlikely now to get the change he wanted through elections and parliament. Degrelle turned himself and Rex over to a fully blown anti-system fascism, complete with paramilitarism, the leader principle, racism, and the secular, not Catholic, morality of the dynamic warrior new man. Because of this desperate radicalization, many people left the party. The vote declined dramatically, and by 1939 it was very difficult to see Rex as a nationalist movement because it was closely affiliated to Nazi Germany. Degrelle advocated for a unified Belgian state and envisioned Rex as a nationalist movement for all Belgians. The movement operated in both Flanders and Wallonia, attempting to collaborate with the VNV to bolster Flemish recruitment. However, Rex's influence was predominantly in the French-speaking part of Belgium, Wallonia. And by 1939, it had become a niche movement.
La haine des Allemands a répercuté contre nous. Et c'est sous cette haine, mais atroce, parce qu'elle était injuste, parce qu'elle nous déchirait, c'est sous cette haine que nous avons connu la défaite de 1931.
facing marginalization from the dominant pillarized parties in Wallonia and losing ground in Flanders to the VNV, which attracted the more radical Flemish nationalist vote. The Rexist Party began forming a paramilitary branch known as the Formation de Combat, led by Ferdinand Rouleau. It was similar to the German SA and had some 4,000 men by the end of the year. By now, Belgium was occupied by Germany. In January 1941, Degrelle held a speech which he ended with the Hitler salute, and this attracted the attention of the Nazi occupier. When the Germans invaded the USSR, they contacted Rex for the possible formation of a Walloon Legion. Early July, Degrelle announced in a speech that 1,000 volunteers had come forward. Most of them were ideologically motivated and they came from the paramilitary branch of Rex, Formation de Combat. After 1 year of German occupation, the membership was estimated at 4,000. However, its ranks would soon thin out, and that mostly had to do with the fact that many of these men joined the Walloon Legion to fight on the Eastern Front against the Soviets. Near the end of 1941, the membership of the FC, the paramilitary branch of Rex, was estimated at 1,000, and most of these were young men or very old men. The first legionnaires are mainly young people who are driven by ideological motives. Their motivation is threefold: anti-Bolshevism, the naive belief that Belgium can be given a better negotiation position at the negotiation table on a redesigned Europe, or the establishment of a new order. This changed from mid-1942. The Legion will then mainly recruit into its ranks adventurers or people trying to escape starvation, forced employment, or general moral, family and financial misery. That year, Victor Matthijs took over as leader of Rex. After actions of the Belgian resistance, he ordered the massacre of 20 people in Courcelles as a reprisal. The move was roundly condemned as being too heavy-handed, and Matthijs gave up the leadership of the Rexists in favor of Louis Collard. Degrelle himself, he offered to fight on the Eastern Front and was offered the rank of lieutenant, which he declined because he wanted to start off as a private. He eventually rose through the ranks and became a commander late 1944. The Walloon Legion was redesignated as the Infantry Battalion 373 and part of the German Wehrmacht. On the Eastern Front, they suffered heavy losses. Himmler was now willing to declare the Walloons as a Germanic race, and this marked the end of the Walloon Legion. On the 1st of June 1943, as the SS Assault Brigade Wallonia was formed. When later that year Belgium was liberated by the Western Allies, the unit was renamed to the 28th Division of the Waffen-SS, and Degrelle became full commander. He was able to bring about 4,000 men in his division. In reality, it was a shadow of a division, and it saw action against the Soviets on the Eastern Front in the latter months of World War II in Europe. Fearing execution for treason in Belgium, Degrelle made his way to Denmark and Norway and then fled to Francoist Spain, where, sentenced to death in absentia, he remained in exile until his death in 1944. During his time in Spain, he was interviewed several times.
Ce sont des gens qui ont peur, qui savent que je les tiens et que tôt ou tard, je leur tordrai le cou comme à des poulets.
Rexist leaders Victor Matthijs and Louis Collard faced trial and were sentenced to death in 1947. If you want to learn more about the Walloon Legion, click here and click here for my video about the German invasion of Belgium in 1940. Thanks for watching. De groeten.